Hello, this is your host, Todd Lewis of the Praise of Falling podcast. This is episode 8 of the Best Enemy Money Can Buy. Picking up where we left off, a letter from William C. Norris to each yellow card sender, dated May 5th, 1978. Control Data Corporation, May 5th, 1978. Dear yellow card sender, you are grossly unfair, woefully ignorant, or being led around by the nose. I suspect it is the latter, otherwise you wouldn't have signed a card with a canned message along with a request to contribute money to the author. Apparently, a Mr. Schlafly of American Council for World Freedom. Why didn't you write and ask about Data Control's position on trade with the communists before signing a form card? You obviously have little knowledge about Control Data's position or activities, nor does Mr. Schlafly. He has not contacted anyone in Control Data. I would have furnished him information, or I would have been glad to respond to a letter from you asking for information. Then if you still disagree strongly, so be it. At least you would have acted sensibly and fairly by getting adequate information. Then you probably wouldn't have resorted to the use of such words as disgrace and outrage, because that is akin to the communist procedure of not fairly weighing the evidence. You obviously are deeply concerned about the Soviet military threat, and I certainly understand that because I share that concern. I think about the subject a great deal, and several points are clear, including that the U.S. should maintain a very strong military capability. Control Data's products and services contribute significantly to our nation's defense system. The U.S. can gain much more by doing business with the Soviet Union than by trying to withhold many things. This later procedure hasn't been effective where it has been tried. 3, most important to maintaining a strong international position, is that we maintain a strong domestic economy with an adequate number of jobs, especially for young, disadvantaged persons. If you have studied worldwide communism, you are aware that it preys upon countries where the domestic economy is sick, weak, or corrupt. Further, Mr. Schlafly's letter to you was based on a highly inaccurate booklet by Miles Kostic. We are familiar with Mr. Kostic's work and have met with him to document inaccuracies in it. Apparently, he has chosen to ignore this evidence because, while we did sign an agreement for the technological cooperation with the Soviet Union, we have not transferred any computer technology to them. No Control Data computer is being used for any military purpose whatsoever by the Soviet Union. Further evidence of error was the blue card that you were asked to mail to Texas Instruments, praising them for refusing to sell to the Soviets. I am sure that their chairman, Mr. Buki, would admit that many Texas Instruments high-technology products are used in Soviet-built equipment. My position is further explained in the enclosed article, High Technology Trade with the Communists, which appeared in Datamation magazine last January. I have also enclosed a clipping from a receipt issue of Time magazine that describes some of Control Data's activities in helping to provide more jobs for the disadvantaged. If you have questions after reading this material, write me sincerely, William C. Norris. William C. Norris, ENCLS. Letter Protocol of Intent dated 19th of October 1973. English version between State Committee of the USSR Council of Ministers for Science and Technology and the Control Data Corporation. Letter Protocol of Intent. The State Committee for Science and Technology of the USSR Council of Ministers and Control Data Corporation, CDC, in the interest of developing extensive long-term technical relationships between Soviet organizations and enterprises and Control Data Corporation have, on 19th of October 1973, concluded an agreement on scientific and technical cooperation. The State Committee for Science and Technology and Control Data Corporation, together with the USSR Ministry of Foreign Trade, hereafter referred to as the parties, have in mind furthering the development of the desired cooperation with which to conclude this letter of intent to identify joint projects which need detailed study and to commit the parties to initiate these studies. 2. The objective of the project called for in paragraph 3 of this letter protocols of intent shall be to A. Establish the coordinating group and working groups called for in Article 4 of the Agreement on Scientific and Technical Cooperation. B. Specify the scope and mechanism by which the scientific and technical information exchanges to be exchanged in under the terms of Article 2 of the Agreement on Scientific and Technical Cooperation shall be carried out. C. Implemented detailed examination of these projects, given first order of priority. D. Defining mutually satisfactory commercial and trade relationships. 3. The following preliminary list of tentative joint projects has been agreed to, and a detailed examination of them will be our first priority. A. Finance and trade. To conduct studies and discussions in order to develop mutually satisfactory basis for payment for the activities to be undertaken within the scope of the agreement on scientific and technical cooperation. This shall include terms of credit, repayment, considerations, and cooperative activities whose purpose is to generate Western currencies to facilitate repayment of credit. B. Software and applications development. Development by the USSR of automated programming methods for improving programmer productivity as well as the generation of systems within certain applications, areas of mutual interest. These would include but not be limited to the medical healthcare field, the transportation industry, and the education environment. Objectives of transportation study might include both the increase of efficiency of passenger transportation as well as enhance the time delivery of freight both by surface and by air. The medical healthcare study would include the creation of systems dealing with patient care, healthcare management, as well as healthcare planning. Work in the education field will be centered on the disciplines of computer-based education and training, including network, special terminals, author language, curriculum, and courseware. New computer subsystems R&D. The USSR will contribute research and technical development of computer elements based on new technical concepts. This research and development will be undertaken based on cooperative planning between Control Data Corporation and appropriate USSR organizations. This research and development may include, but will not be limited to, the realm of memory systems, advanced mass memories, thin film, disk heads, plated disks, memory organization, and ion beam memories. Might be amongst the technologies to be investigated in research and development undertaken. D. Research and development. Joint exploration of research and development activities in USSR enterprises and institutes, which will add to Control Data Corporation's research and development activities, particularly in the area of computer systems, software, and application software, and will constitute in part compensation for technologies which the USSR wishes to obtain from Control Data Corporation. E. Advanced computer system development. To conduct a cooperative development of a computer with rearrangeable structures and a performance rate of 50 to 100 million instructions per second to be used for solving large economic and management problems. Results of software and the architectural research conducted in the Soviet Union will be utilized. The functional design of the software system and the architectural concepts will be supplied by the USSR. The implementation will be conducted in 4 phases as follows. 1. Feasibility. 2. Detailed design. 3. Prototype construction and checkout. 4. Test and evaluation. The feasibility phase will be used to evaluate the proposed computer concepts, both hardware and software, in order to verify that the system can be implemented with known hardware technology. The following are among those areas to be considered as part of the evaluation: architectural design, software system design, new software techniques, new software applications, components, and circuitry, system performance, operating systems, principal applications, manpower, and cost. The entire program is expected to require from 5 to 8 years to reach fruition. Results will be shared on equal basis. Disk manufacturing plant. To build a plant for manufacturing mass storage devices based on removable magnetic disks, disk packs with up to 100 million byte capacity per each pack. The yearly output of plant shall be 5,000 device units and 60,000 units of magnetic disk packs, appropriate estimate. It is expected that 80% of the plant output will be 30 megabyte devices and 20% will be 100 megabyte devices. G. Printer manufacturing. To build a plant to manufacture line printers to operate at a speed of 1,200 lines per minute. The yearly output shall be 3,000 devices, approximate estimate. H. Process control device manufacturing. To build a plant for the manufacture of process control-oriented peripheral devices, including data collection, analog digital gear, terminals, etc. The annual plant output for all devices, including data collection, is estimated as approximately 20,000 units. Note, with respect to items F, G, and H, the parties shall jointly develop technical documentation for manufactured products in accordance with the metric system standard and ensure that all aspects of the plant's design and construction are of the highest quality, such that the manufactured output will be fully competitive in all respects within the world marketplace. Control Data Corporation shall deliver technical documentation, complete sets of technical equipment, as well as know-how and full assistance in order to ensure mastering of full product techniques. I. Printed circuit board manufacturing. Delivery to the USSR of a complete set of equipment for the manufacturing of multi-layer printed circuit boards. J. RYAD. Control Data Corporation Information Processing Systems. Joint creation of information processing systems based on the use of Soviet manufactured computers and Control Data Corporation equipment. Control Data Corporation equipment would include local peripheral subsystems as well as communications hardware, including front ends, remote concentrators, and terminals. It is expected that the system would include operational software jointly created to make a viable computer system for applications to problems in other parts of the world, which could be commercially saleable as total system. K, process control and remote communication concentrator manufacturer to organize within the Soviet Union manufacturing of Control Data Corporation licensed remote communication equipment and analog to digital components for standalone use within technological process control systems. It must be kept in mind that such devices and components must satisfy requirements of both the Soviet Union and Control Data Corporation. Control Data Corporation evaluates that it can buy back approximately $4 million worth of these products. L, new network information system, CyberNet. Joint study to provide a proposed specification for a Soviet computer communication network. Dimensions of networks to be explored will include both the distribution network between terminal users and processing center, as well as an eventual bulk transfer network between cluster centers and private satellite centers. The USSR will develop systems and application software for this network information system based upon the present commercially available Control Data Corporation network software system. The resultant software will be available and shared by both parties. The Control Data communications technologies will be evaluated as one of the major tasks of the study. M, Control Data Cyber 70 data processing centers. Joint creation of processing centers which will utilize computers and other equipment of Soviet manufacture and those of Control Data Corporation for organizational applications such as, but not limited to these specified below. World Hydrometeorological Institute, Moscow, for purposes of weather data forecasting and preparation of weather maps. Institute of High Energy Physics for nuclear research, reduction of acceleration data, and basic particle research. Ministry of Geology, Moscow, for seismic data reduction. USSR Academy of Sciences, Academy Gorodok, Novosibirsk, for operational numerical weather forecasts, as well as for online concurrent processing of scientific data from experimental related to atmospheric gas dynamics. Weather research and basic scientific research. 5. Ministry of Chemical Industry, Moscow, for information processing network in plant and pipe control. 6. Ministry of Oil Refining, Moscow, for electric distribution plant design. 4. In order to launch the above noted programs into viable, successful implementations, Control Data Corporation is prepared to advance long-term credit on mutually beneficial terms through Commercial Credit Company, its financial affiliate. It is expected that the total volume of credit required for financing of the full dimensions of the scientific and technological agreement may reach $500 million. It is further expected that repayment of such credit will be made in form of Western currencies. Commercial Credit Company is prepared to assist the USSR in obtaining such currencies by working jointly with the appropriate authorities in the USSR in the worldwide marketing of Soviet products, and in the development of natural resources for which sustained world demand exists. In the process of developing specific programs to generate currency for credit payment, Control Data Corporation offered the following proposals for consideration. A, financing. Control Data Corporation is prepared to assist the USSR in obtaining the financing needed to accomplish the above noted objectives. Though it is wholly owned subsidiary, Commercial Credit Company, Control Data Corporation can marshal substantial long-term credit to facilitate Soviet purchases of equipment and technology projected under the agreement, as well as credit for potential customers for worldwide sales of Soviet products and materials. Commercial Credit Company will take the initiative in assembling consortiums of major lenders to extend long-term credit to the USSR on mutually beneficial terms. Commercial Credit Company is also preparing to use its Luxembourg facility to make use of U.S. Export-Import Bank financing to the extent such credit is available to finance the export of Control Data Corporation equipment to the USSR. B, Joint Venture Marketing Company, a marketing company jointly owned by a competent Soviet organization, and Commercial Credit Company will be established. The company would be incorporated in Western Europe and would be self-sufficient, a profit-oriented entity. The prime purpose of this company would be to sell these service non-computer related Soviet products in the Western world on the open market. In addition to selling the products of the USSR, the joint venture marketing company will develop, in conjunction with the commercial credit company, economic and trade forecasts for the near to medium-term future in the Western world that will indicate market trends, requirements, and shortages, which can be fed back into the USSR 5-year planning activities to ensure that future USSR exports meet the requirements of future Western markets. C, natural resource development. The Soviet natural resources are the largest of any single country in the world. The key to world trade and access to natural resources not required for domestic use is the creation of additional facilities to obtain and profitably dispose of these resources. The financial resources and worldwide industry associates of the commercial credit company will be employed to create appropriate consortia having 4 major functional entities: A, finance; B, resource extraction and processing expertise; C, construction and operation expertise; D, sales outlet for processed products. Natural resources to be considered would include, but not be restricted to, timber products, non-ferrous metals, precious metals and stones, asbestos, apatite, cement, synthetic rubber, resins, and coal. The present letter of intent is executed in 2 versions, both in Russian and English. Both versions of the text have equal validity. For the State Committee of the USSR Council of Ministers for Science and Technology, for Control Data Corporation, for the Soviet Ministry on Foreign Trade. English version of agreement between the State Committee of the Council of Ministers of the USSR for Science and Technology and Control Data Corporation, signed by Robert D. Schmidt, dated 19th of October 1973. On scientific and technical cooperation, both the State Committee of the Council of Ministers of the USSR for Science and Technology and Control Data Corporation, USA. The State Committee of the Council of Ministers of the USSR for Sciences and Technology, GKNT, and Control Data Corporation, CDC, herein after called parties. Considering that favorable conditions have been created for extensive development of a long-term scientific and industrial economic cooperation, taking into account the mutual interest of both parties in the development of such cooperation and recognizing the mutual advantage thereof, and in accordance with paragraph 8 of the Basic Principles of Relations between the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and the United States of America, signed on May the 29th, 1972, and Article 4 of the Agreement between the Government of the USSR and the Government of the USA on cooperation in fields of science and technology, concluded on May the 24th, 1972, have agreed as follows. Article 1. The subject of the present agreement has to do with long-term program of broad scientific and technical cooperation in the area of computational technology, and specifically to conduct joint development of technically advanced computer, joint development and organization of the production of computer peripheral equipment, joint creation of information. Yeah, this just didn't get copied right. The scope of this agreement may at any time be extended to include other fields of specific subjects of cooperation by agreements of the parties. This agreement is not limiting either party from entering into similar cooperation in said fields with the third party. Article 2. Specific scientific and technical cooperation between the parties can be implemented in the following forms, with specific agreements being exclusively subject to mutual agreement between appropriate Soviet organizations and the firm of Control Data Corporation: exchange of scientific and technical information, documentation, and production samples, exchange of delegations of specialists and trainees, organization of lectures, symposia, and demonstrations of the production samples, joint research, development and testing, exchange of research results and experience, mutual consultations for the purpose of discussing and analyzing scientific and technical problems, technical principles, ideas, and concepts in the appropriate area of cooperation, creation of temporary joint research groups to perform specific projects and to produce appropriate joint reports, exchange, acquisition, or transfer of methods, processes, technical equipment, as well as of know-how and of licenses for the manufacture of products. Article 3, the parties have established that financial, commercial, and legal questions related to advancement of credit and payment for the delivered products and technical equipment, association of licenses and know-how, as well as supplied services and performance of the various joint projects relative to the present agreement, shall be decided by separate agreements between appropriate competent Soviet organizations and the Control Data Corporation. Article 4. For the practical implementation of the present agreement, the parties shall establish a coordinating group from authorized representatives, coordinators, which shall determine and recommend a proper course for the cooperation, and also to control compliance with responsibilities assumed by the parties, and to take the necessary action for the successful implementation of the objectives of present agreement. For the preparation of proposals for the concrete cooperative projects, there shall be established a special group of experts whose task it will be to determine technical and economic feasibility of the joint projects and to draw up action plans for their realization. The results of these working groups shall be turned over to the coordinating group for their discussion and preparation of recommendations. Recommendations and proposals of the coordinating group will be presented in the form of protocols, which will be used as the basis for preparation of specific protocols or contracts. Coordinating and working groups shall meet as frequently as is necessary to perform their functions alternatively in the USSR and USA unless otherwise agreed. Article 5. Scientific and technical information furnished by one party to the other under this agreement may be used freely for its own research, development and production, as well as the realization of finished products, unless the party supplying such information stipulates at the time of its transfer that the information may be used only on the basis of special agreement between the parties. This information can be transmitted to a third party only with the approval of the party which has furnished it. Information received from a third party which cannot be disposed of at will by one of the contracting parties is not subject to transmittal to the other party unless mutually satisfactory arrangements can be made with the third party for communication of such information. It is contemplated in the foregoing that any organizations or enterprises of the USSR and any wholly owned or partially owned control data subsidiaries shall not be regarded as a third party. Article 6. Expenses of traveling back and forth for specialists of both parties under the programs related to this agreement as a rule will be defrayed as follows. The party sending the specialist pays a round trip's fare. The host party bears all costs connected with their stay while in its own country. The duration of the above visits and the number of specialists in each group shall be mutually agreed to by the parties in advance of the visits. Organizational questions arising from implementation of this present agreement shall be discussed and determined by the parties in the course of working. The present agreement shall continue for a period of 10 years and shall enter into force immediately upon its signature. It can be extended with mutual agreement of the parties. Cancellation of the present agreement shall not affect the validity of any agreement and contracts entered to in accordance with Article 3 of the present agreement by organizations and enterprises of the USSR and CDC. Drawn up and signed 19th of October 1973 in the city of Moscow, USSR, in duplicate, one copy in Russian and one in English, both texts being equally authentic. Appendix E. Position of Texas Instruments Company and Chairman Fred Buki on dangers of trading technology to the Soviets. This letter demonstrates that the identification of deaf-mute biomen must be made with care. TI's Fred Buki warns against selling technology know-how and turnkey semiconductor plants to communist nations. Even as West and East Bloc countries discuss relaxing the trade embargo on high technology, a sharp disagreement has developed between two major semiconductor manufacturers on how far this relaxation should extend. One view is exemplified in last month's WestCon speech by C. Lester Hogan, president of Fairchild Camera and Instrument Corps, who wants few restrictions made in East-West semiconductor trade. Hogan stands ready to sell semiconductor products as well as the production equipment, technology, and management know-how to the communist countries. This would mean the communists would manufacture high-level semiconductor products themselves. The French company, Sescosem, a division of Thomson CSF, has already broken the ice with the first turnkey semiconductor plant sold to Poland. And Fairchild, waiting for the trade détente, does not deny having one, quote, understanding on an MOS plan for Poland and another two behind that for Russia. On the opposite side is Texas Instruments, whose executives take a dim view indeed of trade agreements with the Communist bloc. On the grounds that such agreements are not protected by patent rights and do not offer either open markets or the opportunity to build a decent market share. J. Fred Buki, vice president of Texas Instruments, pointed out that it's one thing to sell high technology products in the foreign market, but quite another to sell the know-how to make these products. He's adamantly against turnkey contracts and sees an equal risk in selling the communists such pieces of production equipment as line and exposed towers, diffusion furnaces, epitaxial reactors, and the like. It's axiomatic in high technology industry, says Bucci, that the only adequate payment for know-how is a market share. No lump sum payment or turnkey service fee can be great enough to fund the research and development necessary to enable the seller to maintain his advantage. You can be sure he emphasizes that if we get away the know-how without obtaining a market share, they won't buy a dime from us, devices or equipment. We will be giving away the crown jewels. In Bucci's eyes, a big question with East-West trade is patent recognition. Because of the long-standing embargo on high-technology trade, few Western semiconductor patents are recognized by the Russians or other Eastern Europeans. Since we can sell into the communist country only through their government, says Bucci, the only way we can participate in their markets is for them to agree to recognize our patents retroactively, pay us full royalties, and or give us access to sell directly in their markets on equal footing against their state-owned factories. Bucci also feels that if the free world is footloose with its technology, it may be building a monster that will soon gobble up domestic markets. The communist countries will build their semiconductor capacity with Western-supplied production equipment and know-how, and or with Western-built turnkey plants, protected by high tariff barriers, he says, and when they get their costs down and their own market saturated, they will be right out there exporting into ours. This means that any semiconductor plant set up in Eastern European countries capable of anywhere near the capacity of total Western manufacturing facilities will quickly saturate the domestic communist market and be ready to export the overcapacity to the West. The semiconductor capacity of the Comecon has been greatly exaggerated as well. According to Bucci, the shell game they're playing, says Bucci, is to take small quantities of laboratory-developed devices, giving them to people who are visiting Russia and saying, look at our capacity. Now, why not sell us the equipment to manufacture this? Because we can do it ourselves anyway. If they can, then let them do it. The truth is they don't have the capacity for producing in large quantities at high yields, and that's what they want us for. Appendix F. U.S. firms trading with the Soviet Union in the 1960-1985 period. Data concerning firms trading with the Soviet Union and the technology transferred is classified by the Department of Commerce. Allegedly to protect business from competitors, censorship also has the effect of preventing independent analysis and public opinion from coming to grips with Soviet trade. The following list was compiled from official files for the early and mid-1970s, supplemented by corporate news reports for the later years. It is incomplete, but certainly includes all major U.S. operations in the Soviet Union and is the only such list in existence in the public domain. First column is companies, second column is product. AEC, Atomic Energy. Acme, MFG Co., Machine Tools. Alcoa, Aluminum. Allen Bradley, Machine Tools. Alliance Tool and Die Corps, Machine Tools. Alliance Tool and Die, Machine Tools. Alice Chambers, Machine Tools. All Steel Press Company, Machine Tools. Alpha Press Co., Non-Ferrous Metals. American Can Co., Iron and Steel. American Can Co., Food Machinery. American Chain and Cable, Machine Tools. American Express Services. American Magnesium Core, Metals Technology. Applied Magnetic Core, Electronics. Ara Atsa Metals, subsidiary of Satra Core Trading. Armaco Steel. Atlas Fabricators Inc., Machine Tools. Automatic Production Systems, division of Ingersoll Rand, Motor Vehicles. Babcock and Wilcox Boiler Technology. Bechtel Construction. Belarus Equipment of Canada Ltd., Agricultural Equipment. Bendix Core Machine Tools. Besley Grinder Co., Machine Tools. Bliss EW Division of Gulf and Western Industries, Motor Vehicles. Boeing Machine Tools, Boeing Aircraft Technology. Borg Varner Machine Tools. Brown and Root Inc. Construction. Brown and Sharp MFG Co. Machine Tools. Brunswick Core Machine Tools. Bryant Trucking Grinder Core Machine Tools. Burr Brown Research Corp. N.A. CE Cast Equipment Machine Tools. Carbondum Co. Motor Vehicles. Carlton Machine Tool Co. Machine Tools. Carpenter Technology Corp. Not available. Caterpillar Tractor Co. Agricultural Equipment. Centris Prey Machine Tools. Century Data Electronics. Chase Manhattan Bank Finance. Chematron Core Machine Tools. Cincinnati Millicron Inc. Machine Tools. Clark Equipment Machine Tools. Cleveland Crane and ENG Machine Tools. Colonial Broach Machine Tools. Combustion Engineering Motor Vehicles. Comacore Electronics, Control Data Advanced Computers. Corporation Industries Inc. Petroleum Equipment. Chromalloy Kessler Associates Inc. Machine Tools. Crossco Machine Tools. DAB Industries Inc. Prime Movers. Denison Division of Abex Corp. Machine Tools. Duo Co. Machine Tools. Douglas Aircraft Machine Tools. Dow Chemicals Chemicals. Dresser Industries Oil Tool Equipment. Dr. Dvorkovitz and Associates Non-Ferrous Metals. EI DuPont Deneur & Co. Chemicals. EW Bliss Division of Gulf Machine Tools. Essico Sparkatron Machine Tools. Electronic Memories and Magnetics Core Electronics. El Paso Natural Gas Co. Gas Technology. Engelhard Minerals and Chemical Core Machine Tools. Excel Core Machine Tools. FMC Machine Tools. Fen Rolling Mills Core Rolling Equipment. Fond du Lac Machine Tools. Ford Motor Company Non-Ferrous Metals. GMC Machine Tools. Gearhart Owen Petroleum. General Dynamics on Aeronautical Tech. General Electric Petroleum Equipment. General Electric Machine Tools. General Tool Corps Machine Tools. Giddings & Lewis Machine Tools. Gleason Works Motor Vehicles. Gleason Works Machine Tools. Goddard Space Flight Center Machine Tools. Gould Inc. Motor Vehicles. Gulf General Atomic Energy. Gulf Oil Corp. Petroleum Equipment. Halcroft & Co. Machine Tools. Herrick Products Inc. Machine Tools. Hewlett Packard Electronics. Holcroft & Co. Motor Vehicle. Honeywell Computers. Honeywell Information Systems Electronics. Hudson Vibratory Co. Mechanical Equipment. IBM Machine Tools. IBM Computers. IBM Electronics. Ingersoll Machine Tools. Ingersoll Milling Machine Motor Vehicles. Ingersoll Rand Corps Machine Tools. International Computers Electronics. Intel Core Electronics. International Nickel Technology. International Harvester Machine Tools. Irving Trustco Finance. ITEL Electronics. Jones & Lamson Textron Machine Tools. Joy MFG Drilling Equipment. Appendix G. Confidential Government Report on Cummins Engine Company, J. Irwin Miller, and Financing of Marxist Revolutionary Activities within the United States. 1. Introduction. This section has been reviewing available data on various philanthropic foundations in an effort to determine if their activities are consistent with their announced goals. In this instance, we have made a preliminary analysis of the Cummins Eugene Foundation, which, although a legitimate philanthropic enterprise, nonetheless would appear to serve as a conduit for funds to support Black militants and organizations which are known to consistently promote radical revolutionary activities. This analysis roughly outlines the data presently available. Obviously, there is considerably more to be learned concerning CEF's overall activities. Additional inquiries to the Phil are contemplated, and liaison has already been established with the Internal Revenue Service in an effort to develop our respective interests. Fortunately, the complex nature of this tax-exempt foundation does not lend itself to an easy explanation. It is suggested that the reader make frequent references to the attached chart, which will hopefully enhance understanding of the organization. 2. Background. The Cummins Eugene Foundation, CEF, was established in 1954 as a philanthropic organization by J. Irwin Miller, chairman of the board, Cummins Engine Corral, Columbus, Indiana. Mr. Miller is a highly respected 62-year-old civic leader who, in recent years, has devoted much of his time and money to various charities and religious pursuits. He is regarded as part of the avant-garde of the civil rights movement. CEF is financed solely by Cummins Engine Company, which is the parent of a worldwide concern reputed to be the largest independent producer of high-speed diesel engines. In the 1970s, CEC's pre-tax profit was $44,564,365, which 5% was allocated to CEF. CEF generally receives $1 to $3 million annually. CEF is comprised of 2 sections. 1, the original country-related philanthropic CRP, which provides money for educational, health, and social welfare projects in the Bartholomew County, Indiana, and 2, the general philanthropic GP, which was established in 1908. Little is known about the operations of the former. This report deals exclusively with the known activities of the GP section, which shares the pre-tax profits with the CRP. In an effort to assist in the cultural and economic development of the nation's Black people, CEF's GP section provides large sums of tax-free dollars, which are distributed through program directors in 5 cities: VIZ, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Atlanta, and Chicago. There appear to be no auditing procedures once the funds have been allocated by CEF to the program directors. The situation creates broad opportunities for misdirection or misappropriation of monies. The overall thrust of this report, therefore, is to illustrate how a seemingly beneficent activity can be, by diverse means, serve to aid the objectives of radical individuals and organizations. Specifically, CEF has provided a vehicle whereby, 1, monies were given to one organization earmarked for the use of another organization, which in turn has recruited Black activists to participate in a revolutionary training in Communist China in December 1971. 2, CEF contributed $5,500 during 1970 to the Institute for Policy Studies, IPS. A resident fellow of IPS also serves as the Washington Program Director for CEF. Third, CEF funds are utilized for the purchase and operation of printing equipment ultimately used by groups advocating revolutionary social change. 4, a close working relationship exists between organizations funded by CEF and certain Marxist-Leninist organizations. One of these is headed by James Foreman, a principal advocate of Black revolutionary training abroad. 5, a CEF program director also indicted for inciting a riot during a demonstration at a penitentiary in October 1970 while serving as a self-appointed spokesman for prisoners' grievances. 6, the aforementioned program director has purchased a 130-acre farm in his name, apparently using the CEF funds. The announced purpose for this farm is that it is to be used as a youth camp to train children in self-defense and in African culture. 7, seemingly irregular fiscal practices exist with respect to CEF-funded organizations in Baltimore, and inordinate amounts of money are dispensed from such items as materials. 8, the possibility exists that certain dummy organizations have been created in order to siphon off funds which are destined for otherwise legitimate activity. 3, details. Today, the primary area of investigation into CEF activities has been concentrated in Baltimore, Maryland. The paucity of information concerning CEF-funded activities in Los Angeles, Atlanta, Chicago, and New York stems from the fact that the investigation has not yet been actively instituted in those areas. For this reason, the scope of this report will be limited mainly to those activities of CEF in the Baltimore, Maryland area. The CEF program director in Baltimore is Walter Lively, a 29-year-old Black activist who since 1961 has been vigorously involved with the Socialist Party, CORE, U-Join, a Jobs for Blacks program that he organized in Baltimore. SNCC and the Urban Coalition. He now leads the Baltimore Neighborhood Commons, BNC, a corporation through whose bank account CEF channels a portion of its money. Presumably, CEF money enabled Lively to establish the Liberation House Press, which currently offers a full range of printing services at cut rates to radical groups. Lively, with his fellow BNC officers, Austin Sidnor and Kenya Kyangazi, also operates the Liberation Bookstore. The BNC, the Liberation House Press, Liberation Bookstore, and an office of the International Black Workers Congress, IBWC, are all located at the same address in Baltimore. Lively, Sidnor, and Kyangazi are also maintained close liaison with the UBWC, the Black Panther Party, BPP, and Soul School SS, and significantly, these individuals were arrested and indicted for inciting riot at a BPSS rally at Maryland State Penitentiary in October 1970. In December 1970, Lively purchased for $15,000 a 130-acre farm in Bedford, Pennsylvania, where Liberation Press and Soul School are to build a youth camp to train children in self-defense and African culture. Soul School is a nonprofit educational institution whose literature in the past has advocated Black revolution. The matador in which BNC funds are expressed seems to suggest a lack of auditing procedures. From December the 21st, 1970 to September the 17th, 1971, a total of $46,887.60 was withdrawn from the BNC account. On this account, checking was $17,135. Remain payable to cash or an officer of the BNC, usually for reasons of materials or supplies. It should be noted that the checks totaling $2,830.14 were made payable to companies which deal in paper and printed supplies, and $11,505 was withdrawn for purposes of printing press. Similarly, the suspect are activities similarly suspect of the activities of organizations which have received CEF funds through BNC and Lively. In 1971, CEF made available $12,000 to BNC designated for the National Association of Black Students, NABS, an association whose stated purpose is to provide a communications network for Black college students. As of November 1971, NABS was recruiting revolutionary Black students to travel to China, with a group recruited by William Epton's Marxist-Leninist Collective. The express purpose of the trip is to provide training for student organizers to further revolution in the United States. At least $5,000 from CEF were sent to BNC in 1971, marked for the Frantz Fanon Institute, EFI. EFI is allegedly an educational, FFI is allegedly an educational entity dedicated to inculcate Marxist-Leninist teachings in the minds of workers and students. Although a reference to its inception was made by radical activist James Forman at a NABS meeting in December 1970, the actual location of FFI is presently unknown. The available descriptions of FFI's structure anti-program was found attached to an International Black Workers Congress, IBWC, mailing list. It should be noted that James Forman founded IBWC and traveled to Algeria in 1970 abstemiously to gather information for a book he was writing about Frantz Fanon. In 1971, the three officers of the BNC traveled to Gary, Indiana for the IBWC conference called by James Forman. The purpose of the conference was to instruct local chapters in the techniques of organizing workers in factories to further the cause of destroying capitalism and building a social state. Forman, who traveled to Hanoi and Peking in July 1971, had copies of a 16-page manifesto of the IBWC distributed to the 200 conferees, who were present by invitation only. This document includes, among other objectives, the elimination of parasitic capitalist vultures, total disarmament of the U.S., destruction of all police forces, and their replacement with People's Militia, and an end to the blockade of Cuba. The program designed to effect goals stresses teaching workers and students Marxist-Leninist ideology and promotes acceptance of money from white institutions as a good revolutionary tactic. The manifesto concludes with the 6-point methodology for revolutionary work. Quoted from a 1970 North Vietnamese publication, the precise nature of the relationship between IBWC and BNC is unclear. It is nonetheless noteworthy that in April 1971, CEF's program director was said to be attempting to organize Black American workers. Ivanhoe Donaldson, CEF's Washington, D.C. program director, also serves as a resident fellow for the Institute for Public Studies, IPS, which has been characterized as a radical think tank. Ty was selected for the CEF position because of his contacts with leading Black activists. Donaldson serves concurrently as leader of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC, in New York City, and as an IPS. Appendix H. Okay. From the Phoenix Letter, January 1986, issue, research publication, P.O. Box 39850, Phoenix, Arizona, 85069. Secret U.S.-Soviet group plot treason. A secret U.S.-Soviet operating group based in New York is acting in a manner strongly suggesting treason by its American members. We do not use the word treason lightly. We have circulated certain information in our possession to close associates. Without exception, they are shocked, shaken, delivered, and disbelieving and angry. Before we spell out the details for you, how do we define treason? Treason is defined in the Constitution as aid and comfort to the enemy of the United States. Second, following this, how do we define an enemy? We spend $300 billion a year on defense against the Soviet Union, so logically, the Soviet Union is an enemy. We cannot simultaneously have a $300 billion defense budget against the Soviet Union and give aid and comfort for the Soviet military structure without raising the question of treason. This topic is discussed at length in the forthcoming book, The Best Enemy Money Can Buy. Who is the secret group? Why do we suggest treason? US-USSR Trade and Economic Council, Inc., TEC for short. This bland official sounding title disguises a formal joint Soviet-American apparatus to conduit advanced technology with pure military applications to the Soviet Union. The information that follows raises a distinct possibility that the administration's spy trials and pious proclamations against aiding the Soviets are so much hogwash, a smokescreen. This tech group has official sanction in backing its It links to Bush elements in the White House, the National Association of Manufacturers, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and assorted senators and congressmen with more political ambition than common sense. The U.S.-USSR Trade and Economic Council, Inc. is a secret organization. TEC will not release its membership list, about 300, to the media. TEC will not even release its list to U.S. firms unless the firm has passed an interview by a Soviet national whom we suspect has KGB links. Now, hear this. The Soviet government has a list of members. The U.S. government has a list of members. The U.S. public has denied this information, even though TEC claims official backing. We acquired a partial list from a confidential source reprinted on page 245. We know this partial list is accurate. We also know 500 copies of this membership list exist, so it's only a matter of time and persistence until we get the full list. TEC claims backing from Vice President Bush, Skull and Bones, and Commerce Secretary Malcolm Baldrige Jr., son of S&B member Malcolm Baldrige. This makes TEC a quasi-public institution. Therefore, the public has a right to demand the membership list. Why all the secrecy? Read on. TEC is headed by Vladimir N. Shushkov, co-chairman, Soviet citizen. Duane O. Andreas, co-chairman, U.S. citizen. James H. Giffen, president, U.S. citizen. Yuri V. Ligav, vice president, Soviet citizen. The permanent directors of TEC are Alexander Trowbridge, president, National Association of Manufacturers. Richard Lesher, president, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. TEC has 30 Soviet directors and 20 U.S. directors. TEC has 8 full-time Soviet engineers living in New York to assess U.S. technology. The cost is borne by TEC members. These Soviet engineers interview U.S. businessmen and assess the U.S. technology offered. They select technology required for Soviet military end uses and facilitate the transfer. In a recent White House meeting, the president's science advisor, Dr. George Keyworth, made the following statement. We all know the Soviets are robbing us blind. Furthermore, the White House has a list of more than 150 Soviet weapon systems using U.S. technology. Yet Vice President Bush and Commercial Secretary Malcolm Baldrige Jr. are backing the Soviet technical vacuum operation. We reproduce on page 246 a copy of a letter sent by Baldrige to many U.S. firms in June 1985. The marginal notations are by our confidential source. We left them intact. Partial list of membership, U.S.-USSR Trade and Economic Council, Inc. About laboratories, Allen Bradley, Alliance Tool Corporation, Allied Analytical Systems, Alice Chalmers, American Kynamid, American Express, Archer Daniels Midland, Armaco Steel, Bungay Corporation, Cargill, Caterpillar, Chase Manhattan, Chemical Bank, Clark Equipment, Coca-Cola, ConAgra, Continental Grain, Corning Glass, Deere & Company, Dow Chemical, Dresser Industries, E.I. DuPont, Garnett Grain, Gleason Corporation, Hope Industries, Ingersoll Rand, International Harvester, Kodak, Marine Midland, Millipore Inc., Minnesota Mining, Monsanto, Occasional Petroleum, Owens, Illinois, PepsiCo, Fibro, Salomon, Philip Morris, Ralston Purina, Roham and Haas, Seagram, Stauffer Chemical, Tendler Barrett's Industry Associates, Tenneco Inc., Union Carbide, Union Rig and Company, FMC Corporation, and Xerox. Alfred J. Mutter, the key U.S. operative. The key American operative in the New York office of TEC is Alfred J. Mutter, former chairman of the Gleason Works, a large machine tool firm in Rochester, New York, with plants in Belgium and West Germany. Mutter works closely today with the Soviet engineers. For our example here, we select Alexander Y. Markov, listed as project engineer. These two men jointly screen American business companies, and if they find the offer technology interesting, attempt to draw the firm into the tech net. We can dismiss Alexander Markov briefly. Markov is a Soviet citizen, chemical engineer, suspected KGB resident in New York for almost 3 years. Markov's job is to identify the usefulness of technology to the Soviet military complex. As Markov is a Soviet national, the question of treason does not arise. So far as we know, Markov is a patriotic Soviet citizen doing his job. His only defect that we have identified is his habit of chain smoking a Turkish-type oval cigarettes, which overwhelms American visitors unused to the pungent odor and clouds of smoke. Alfred Mutter deserves more attention because he's a U.S. citizen. Born in Rochester, New York, 1923, educated at MIT and University of Rochester. Before joining tech, Mutter was chairman of the board of Gleason Works with a 42-year service. The Gleason Works is a long-established precision tool maker specializing in precision machine tools for cutting and grinding straight, zero, spiral, bevel, hyphoid gears, and curved couplings with associated tooling equipment. It is vital to know that Gleason Works is in bad financial shape with heavy losses during the past few years. Every last machine tool produced by Gleason Works has military applications. We know from experience that there is no purely civilian industry in the Soviet Union. All plants are first and foremost military plants. All technology is examined first and foremost for military applications. This was demonstrated 20 years ago in my 3-volume Western Technology and Soviet Economic Development, and since confirmed by dozens of defecting Soviet engineers. This thesis is accepted today by Department of Defense and Central Intelligence Agency. It is not accepted by Department of State, which operates in a fantasy world of its own making. What is the relationship between the financially troubled Gleason Works and the Soviet Union today? Okay, we're almost done with the whole book. A lot of gaps in this version. What's wrong with this upload, but whatever. Appendix I. U.S. weapons technology sold to the Soviets from San Jose Mercury News, September the 6th, 1985. Spanish company pleads guilty to illegal exports from Washington. The Soviet Union illegally has obtained state-of-the-art American equipment that can help it close the gap between its weapons and highly sophisticated U.S. weaponry. And additionally, highly sensitive equipment has reached Cuba, according to a Department of Commerce official and an indictment made public Thursday. Details of the case, which involves efforts by the Soviet bloc to obtain equipment crucial to the production of highly sought computer semiconductors and integrated circuits, emerged when a Spanish company that maintains offices in Illinois agreed to pay a criminal fine of $1 million for illegally exporting high-technology equipment between 1979 and 1982. U.S. Attorney Joseph E. DeGenovia issued a statement saying the violation by Fire Semiconductors SA of Barcelona was one of the most significant in the area of United States high technology transfer. Under an agreement between the Department of Justice and Piher, the company pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts, waived indictment by a grand jury, and agreed to pay the fine. In addition, the company, which already has been barred for 2.5 years from exporting U.S.-made products, will remain barred for an additional 9 months. Equipment valued at $2.4 million was shipped to the Soviet Union and Cuba, and other highly sensitive items did not get through, according to Pentagon and Department of Commerce officials familiar with the case. These officials described the lot as items at the top of the Soviets' list of materials needed to help them move into the age of highly sophisticated computer-dependent weapons. They have a major need for it in the military, said one Pentagon official, speaking on the condition he'd not be identified. It would probably narrow the gap considerably in weapon systems, leaving a qualitative edge to their quantitative edge. Officials said the Soviet Union, which in the past has tried to obtain semiconductors and integrated circuits produced in the West, presently had shifted its emphasis to obtaining the equipment needed to manufacture the circuitry. The miniatures, the wires that carry electronic data, and such common gadgets as pocket calculators and digital watches, as well as in the most sophisticated space weapons. Such equipment is among the Soviet bloc's most highly sought American high-technology goods needed for expanding and improving the bloc's lagging microprocessor and semiconductor capability, said Donald Creed, a Department of Commerce spokesman. Okay, he said department documents confirm that $2.4 million of these goods, $2.4 million of these goods were illegally exported to Cuba and Russia. The most sensitive state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing equipment went to the Soviet Union after first being shipped to Switzerland. Creed said the material shipped to Cuba and additional equipment the Cubans were unable to obtain would have given them the capability to produce semiconductors and integrated circuits. As far as we know, the plant didn't get into production, he said. They didn't get everything they needed. However, according to the agreement accepted by Piher, Cuba already has semiconductor manufacturing facility in Pinar del Rio. The indictment said 2 senior officers of the Spanish company Jose Puig Albaran and Francisque Cele Ipolanes reached agreements with the Soviet and Cuban trade organizations to obtain equipment from U.S. manufacturers. The two are believed to be in Spain and out of reach of U.S. law enforcement officials. Pi-Her itself apparently does not make semiconductor manufacturing equipment, according to a spokesman for a Silicon Valley market research firm. To my knowledge, they don't make equipment, said Jerry Hutchinson, president of VLSI Research Inc., a San Jose company that does market research on the semiconductor industry. The indictment states that PUIG reached an agreement with IMEXIN, a Cuban foreign trade organization, to provide and erect a complete integrated circuit manufacturing facility valued at $19 million. It is said Pugy and Sol, who eventually quit the company, negotiated with Technoproimport, a Soviet foreign trade organization, to sell the Soviets two highly sophisticated U.S. origin integrated circuit manufacturing systems. U.S. officials and information in the indictment said U.S. officials in Spain checking at Pi-Her facilities to determine whether the falsely completed export license documents were being adhered to were shown fake equipment intended to resemble that exported by Pi-Her. All right, that is it. We are finished with the best enemy the money can buy. Rucker Deepness and Corbin, hello. We have a few people in the chat here. So the Control Data Corporation had plans in the works to help the Soviet Union build a computer to solve the calculation problem in central planning and build a computer network in Russia. That's what it looks like. Record Deepness, it almost feels like the list of major companies uninvolved with the Soviet trade in this period were shorter. 1970s were weird. Yeah, 70s and 80s. All right, everyone. That's all I got for today. We finished the show, and this is the last show that I'm going to do this year. I will resume next year, January the 2nd. It's Todd Lewis, the Braves of Fly podcast, signing off.